This is a story about not just a crime, it is a story that underscores the depths of true evil. A story where love turns into something sinister, trust is torn apart, and Lucy's bright future is snatched by pure evil. Lucy Njambi Nyagiko, a young mother of one's life, was brutally cut short in such a sadistic manner by her abusive, controlling and manipulative husband Samuel Ndungu Njoroge, the former MCA of Riruta. But what drove Samuel, a seemingly upstanding politician, to gruesomely end his wife's life? Welcome to Silent Shadows. As always, if you appreciate our true crime storytelling, support our fortnightly series by liking and subscribing. Together we uncover compelling tales of crimes and mysteries in Kenya and beyond, presenting well-balanced narratives that respect the victims and their loved ones. Lucy Njambi Nyagiko was born on 10th May 1994 in Gatundu, Kiambu County to Mary Nyagiko. Sadly, in 2004, when Lucy was only 10 years old, her mother succumbed to meningitis. Given Lucy's father was not in the picture, when her mom passed away, her grandmother, Margaret Gashambi, took up the role of raising her. Lucy's grandmother supported her through school, first at Kahogwene Primary School, where she sat for her KCPE exams in 2007, and then later proceeded to Ngenda Secondary School in Kiamwangi, Kiambu County, where she scored a C+ in her KCSE exams in 2011. Now an adult, Lucy had blossomed into a beautiful young lady who was best known for her quiet demeanor and her politeness. Although she loved learning and excelled in her studies, due to financial constraints, her grandmother could not afford to take her to university. As a result, Lucy enrolled at St. Gabriel Catholic College in Gatundu in 2012, where she pursued a certificate in International Computer Driving License, ICDL, followed by a diploma in cosmetology. Upon completing her studies, Lucy began working as a waiter at a Korean restaurant in Nairobi. It was during this period that Lucy crossed paths with her future husband Samuel Ndungu, also known as Joe Akali, and who was 10 years her senior. Samuel Ndungu, who was allegedly born on 10th June 1984, was a businessman dealing with scrap metal. Despite their blossoming relationship, Lucy encountered opposition from her family members, particularly her uncle, whose name remains undisclosed, but who worked as a taxi driver in Roysambu. The reason behind her uncle's disapproval remains unclear, though it could be speculated that his long-standing friendship with Samuel had given him insights into Samuel's unsavory character. Furthermore, he might have objected to the relationship due to the fact that when Samuel was dating Lucy, he was married with 2 daughters. In a mysterious turn of events, Lucy's uncle was tragically murdered in 2012, and his body dumped near Thika Blue Post Hotel. In spite of the gruesome circumstances of his death, no one has been linked or charged for his murder to this day. Nonetheless, the circumstances surrounding his death invite speculation. Could his demise have been orchestrated to pave the way for Samuel to marry Lucy? Share your thoughts in the comments below. According to Lucy's grandmother's account, shortly after her uncle's tragic demise in 2012, Lucy called her grandmother informing her that she had quit her job at the Korean restaurant and had married Samuel Ndungu in a come-we-stay arrangement. It is crucial to highlight that by the time Samuel was marrying Lucy, he had parted ways with his first wife. Lucy's family members asserted that she seemed to be doing well in her marriage, and even in 2013, when Samuel began his campaigns for the member of county assembly seat in Riruta ward, Lucy was even featured in his campaigns. Unfortunately, 2013 would prove to be bittersweet for Lucy, as this is the year she and Samuel were blessed with a bouncing baby boy, and Samuel won the MCA Riruta ward seat, significantly improving the economic prospects. Sadly, following Samuel becoming the MCA for Riruta, conflicts began in their marriage, to the extent that Samuel would abuse Lucy both physically and verbally, forcing Lucy to keep running away from their matrimonial home and seek refuge at her grandmother's home. However, in a classic depiction of the cycle of abuse, Samuel would always seek out Lucy to iron out their differences, and the couple would always reconcile, with Lucy returning to their matrimonial home in Lavington. As the years went by, Lucy's and Samuel's relationship continued to be rocky. Notably, their marriage became very abusive in 2017, when Samuel vied for the MCA Riruta seat once more, but he lost the elections to one John Kiriba. The domestic abuse caused Lucy to run away from their family home and move back in with her grandmother. In a typical narcissistic move to win her back, Samuel decided to legitimize their union under Kikuyu customary law by going to Lucy's grandmother's home in Kamwangi village in Gatundu to pay for her dowry. The traditional wedding ceremony, as seen in this invitation card, was scheduled for 25th November 2017. Nevertheless, Lucy's family members noted that she was not as jubilant about the ceremony as expected. One of Lucy's relatives, called Esther, told the court that on the eve of her traditional ceremony, this is on 24th November 2017, Lucy was sad and pensive the whole day, and Lucy confessed to her about the marital issues she was having with Samuel. Lucy's grandmother echoed this sentiment by telling the court that on the eve of the ceremony, Lucy confessed to her that Samuel had physically assaulted her badly several times, and she had a bad scar near her shoulder blade from past beatings. Disturbingly, on the day of the ceremony, 25th November 2017, Lucy's aunt told reporters that Samuel allegedly warned Lucy via phone that she was not to leave the house until he arrived. Samuel allegedly also warned Lucy against talking to the friends that Samuel would show up with for the traditional wedding ceremony. Regardless of the numerous red flags, Lucy's and Samuel's ceremony happened as planned. Expectedly, not even the traditional wedding ceremony would change Samuel's toxic tendencies of abusing his wife, as 2 days after the event, on 27th November 2017, Lucy allegedly went to seek refuge at her Aunt Fidelis's house in Kawangware, crying hysterically. According to Fidelis's testimony in court, Lucy told her that Samuel had been endlessly cruel to her, and in addition to physically assaulting her, he was also verbally abusing her. Specifically, Lucy told her aunt that Samuel had accused her of being useless, except in bed, and of sleeping with uncut men. After this incident, Samuel managed to lure Lucy back to their matrimonial home again with big promises, including giving her money and buying her a car, but the cycle of abuse would not stop. About a week and a half later, on 9th December 2017, Lucy texted her Aunt Fidelis telling her that, should she die, Fidelis should take care of her young son, Emmanuel. On probing where this was coming from, Lucy told her aunt that Samuel had brutally assaulted her physically and injured her gruesomely on her head and ribs. Following this altercation, Lucy fled the home she shared with Samuel and went to live with her Aunt Fidelis in Kawangware, before going to live with her grandmother in Gatundu. Lucy spent the 2017 Christmas holidays with her family at the village, and according to those close to her, she was picking up the pieces and rebuilding her life. Nevertheless, Samuel was relentless in making Lucy's life a living hell. As per Lucy's grandmother's account of events, Samuel would send people to spy on Lucy at the village and update him on all her undertakings. Undeterred and keen to turn over a new leaf, Lucy moved to a new apartment at Vindigua in January of 2018. She even started buying beauty equipment for a salon she planned to open, which she had planned to call Amazing Beauty Salon. By opening the beauty salon, Lucy hoped to repay all the money Samuel had spent on her, with the hopes of breaking free from him once and for all. Sadly, Lucy would not realize her dream of opening the salon, as her life was tragically cut short by him. Samuel's dark and malicious obsession with Lucy knew no bounds. After Lucy moved to her new apartment in Vindigua in January of 2018, Samuel also moved from their family home in Lavington to Morningstar Apartments in Vindigua, which were located a few minutes from where Lucy lived. Beyond setting herself up financially to be free from Samuel, Lucy also sought to find love again, and she began seeing another man named Keru. Lydia, Keru's mother, told the court that since Samuel would spy on Lucy, he learned that she was romantically involved with Keru. Consequently, Samuel sent Keru a threatening message saying, "Hey kaze, unaita bibia wenyewe be, let's meet in heaven." Samuel even dispatched thugs to Lydia's home to search for Keru in an attempt to intimidate him. Fearing for her son's safety, Lydia and Keru reported the matter to Gatundu police station. Subsequently, in an effort to further protect his life, Keru promised Samuel not to text Lucy again, and Samuel agreed to cease threatening his life. Not trusting Samuel's promise, Lydia sought to shield her son more from harm by allegedly arranging for Keru to flee the country and go to Dubai. In a very, very, very strange move, and for the sake of self-preservation, Lydia went a step further to try and be in Samuel's good books by talking to Lucy and persuading her to reconcile with him. When Lucy refused to take Samuel back, Lydia took it upon herself to introduce Samuel to another young woman who could potentially become his girlfriend. Unbeknownst to Lydia, her actions would play a significant role in Lucy's demise, as Samuel was acrimonious towards Lucy for moving on and refusing to take him back, and he was not going to just let go of Lucy so easily. Keeping her word, on 16th January 2018, Lydia introduced Samuel to a woman named Joyce Njambi. According to Samuel's driver, Francis Mumira Mwangi, Samuel instructed him to drive to Kihunguro Shell petrol station, where they picked up Lydia and Joyce. They then proceeded to 1.7 Lounge Bar and Grill in Kamakis, Ruiru. Upon getting to the entertainment joint, Francis remained in the car while Samuel and the two women went inside for some food and drinks. Shortly thereafter, Lydia returned to the car and informed Francis that she had introduced Samuel to Joyce and wanted them to know each other well, which was code for initiating a romantic relationship. Following this introduction, it is profoundly unsettling that a few days after Joyce met Samuel, she would buy into his evil plan of taking Lucy's life. Merely a week after meeting Samuel on 23rd January 2018, Joyce sought to find the murder instrument to take Lucy's life by calling a man named Benjamin Boru, who was a lab technician at an international school in Nairobi, inquiring about where to buy sulfuric acid. Alarmed, Benjamin asked what she intended to use the acid for, and she reassured him that she needed it to clean rust from metals, which was a believable explanation since her boyfriend had a business of selling scrap metal. Apparently, during this call, Joyce's phone went off, and a minute later Samuel called Benjamin inquiring about the acid. Benjamin explained to him he could buy the acid at the Science Lab Limited located on Accra Road, Nairobi. Hours later on the same day, Benjamin received another call from Samuel, confirming they had found and purchased the acid. Joyce and Samuel proved to be relentless in solving the sulfuric acid puzzle, as approximately 2 hours later, Benjamin claims Joyce called him once more, telling him the acid was not working well. You cannot help but wonder what they tested it on. Benjamin recalled explaining to her how to use the acid and jokingly mentioning he should charge them consultation fees, and immediately after the call, Samuel sent him via M-Pesa Kenya shillings 1,500 as a token of appreciation. Having acquired the murder instrument, Samuel's next move was to lure Lucy into his evil trap. The following day, Samuel called her, letting her know he would be passing by her house that evening under the guise of, among other things, giving her money for the upkeep of their son. On the same day, Wednesday, 24th January 2018, Samuel asked his driver Francis to drive him to Kihunguro, where he met his now girlfriend Joyce and two other men, namely Wilson Mwangi and Jugush. The four, Samuel, Joyce, Wilson and Jugush, had a meeting for 45 minutes to go through their evil plan of eliminating Lucy. After the meeting, Francis alleged that Samuel instructed him to take him and Joyce to his house in Lavington, the one that he had once called home with Lucy. Upon getting to the house, Samuel and Joyce headed inside, and 20 minutes later, they emerged with Samuel carrying a box. He asked Francis to put it in the boot, and in so doing, Francis could tell inside the box was a container with some liquid in it. In court, he estimated the container to be probably a 5-liter jerrycan. He further noted, Joyce remarked to him that the container contained a liquid for cleaning rust from iron, and since Francis knew his boss to be dealing with scrap metal, the contents of the jerrycan did not seem to be out of the ordinary to him. On their way from Lavington, Francis further maintained Samuel asked him if he knew someone who could get him a car hire, but he said he did not. Samuel then allegedly made a few calls to his contacts, inquiring about a car hire as Francis drove to Homeland Inn restaurant, where Samuel and Joyce met with the two men, Wilson Mwangi and Jugush, whom they had met earlier. Francis was left in the car as his boss, his girlfriend Joyce, and the two men proceeded to the restaurant, where they had drinks as they waited for the car hire which Samuel had ordered. At around 8 p.m., a Toyota Premio registration number KBH 945N, the car hire ordered by Samuel from Breeze Travelers in Riruta was delivered at the entertainment joint. Samuel, Joyce, Wilson, and Jugush got into the hired car, and Samuel instructed Francis to drive his Toyota Harrier to Lucy's apartment in Ndungu. On the way to Lucy's apartment, Francis claimed Samuel called him, instructing him to drive the Toyota Harrier to the Quickmart on Kiambu Road. When Francis arrived at Quickmart, he found Samuel, Joyce, and the two men in the Toyota Premio in the parking lot. Samuel told Francis that the car hire could not get him where they were going and asked him to exchange cars. Perhaps Samuel thought if he showed up at Lucy's with a foreign car, it might raise her suspicions. Samuel then instructed Francis to take the car hire to his house at Morningstar Apartments, Ndungu, and together with Joyce and the two men, Samuel got into his Toyota Harrier and headed to Lucy's. Chillingly, Francis noted that all this while, Samuel seemed very upset and remarked that his wife Lucy was no longer going to be sleeping with uncut men. Samuel showed up at Lucy's house moments later, according to the accounts given by Lucy's house help and the caretaker of the apartments. When Samuel got to the apartments at Ndungu, Lucy did not let him into her house. Instead, they stayed in his car, which was in the parking lot. It is unsubstantiated where the other three individuals, Wilson Mwangi, Jugush, and Joyce hid, but they were definitely nearby, ready to follow through with their sinister plan. Lucy's house help further alleged to have served Lucy and Samuel dinner and brought it down to them in the car, where they went ahead to eat their food. Unknown to Lucy, this would be her last meal, and although all seemed well with Samuel, just like Judas, he would hand over her to her killers shortly thereafter. As Lucy and Samuel sat in the car, according to witnesses, two men and a lady pounced on them in what seemed like an abduction, and the car speedily left the apartment complex. The car was then driven by the assailants to a coffee plantation in Kamiti Corner, Mugumoine of Kiambu Road, where Lucy was verbally, intimately, and physically assaulted by being doused with sulfuric acid and left for dead by Samuel, Joyce, Jugush, and Wilson. As a testament of her resilience, Lucy crawled from the coffee plantation at around 9:15 p.m., sobbing in agonizing pain and seeking help. By God's grace, near the coffee plantation, Anne Wanjiru was bidding farewell to her friend, Mrs. Mwanyora, and her husband. As they said their goodbyes at Anne's gate, they heard muffled screams coming from down the road. The three, Anne, Mrs. Mwanyora, and her husband, went to investigate where the cries were coming from, leading them down the road where they found a jarring scene, a naked lady who was badly burnt. A small crowd was already forming at the scene. Concerned, Anne ran back to her house to bring water in a bucket to cool off the lady, and then some lasso to cover her. Noting her precarious state, Anne was then helped by other good Samaritans to put Lucy in Mr. Moyura's car, and they rushed her to Kiambu Hospital. All this while, Lucy could only tell Anne that her name was Njambi and her place of origin Gatundu, and Anne used these details to register her at the casualty department in Kiambu Hospital before going back home. It's worth mentioning that they did not go to report the incident to the police. This could be because they did not have enough information on who Lucy was or what had happened, or they thought that the staff at the hospital were the ones responsible for involving the authorities after determining what had happened to Lucy. On the other hand, Samuel, together with Joyce and the two men, deceivingly tried to portray the picture that he had also been kidnapped alongside Lucy. After orchestrating the sadistic attack on Lucy and leaving her for dead in the coffee plantation, the three tied Samuel's hand with sellotape and dumped him on the roadside at Kwakairo in Ruiru. It was here that David Mukuria, who was driving, found Samuel in hysteria and took him to Ruiru Hospital before taking him to Mugutha police station to report the kidnapping. Samuel recorded a statement that, together with his wife, they had been kidnapped by unknown assailants, but he had managed to escape. In a chilling twist of fate, Samuel was taken for a physical examination to Kiambu Hospital, the same hospital Lucy was admitted to. Without Samuel's knowledge, Lucy was still alive, and while at the hospital, Lucy was able to give her grandmother's contact details to the hospital staff attending to her. Her relatives came to visit her at the hospital, and she confessed to them that it was her husband Samuel who was responsible for her gruesome attack as explained by her aunt in this video.
Wakamkalisha kiti, wakafunga milango na wakaenda. Hiyo gari ilitoka hapo mbio sana, ndio kiateka alikuwa anatuambia. Jabia akatuambia alipelekwa mahali na huko kichakani kulikuwa na kahawa, wakaanza kumuuliza maswali, amelala na wanaume wangapi, wakamuuliza hapa bwana yako ni mgani. Jabia akapoint bwana yake, akaambiwa hapana, huyu sio bwana yako. Ndio alimaliza kuongea hivyo, alisema bwana yake, akamtoa nguo akamwagilia hiyo acid. Daktari alituambia inaitwa sulfuric acid. Sasa kwa hiyo sijui walimfungia mkaba juu alikuwa mkaba alikuwa amefungiwa kwa.
From this account, it is evident that someone was on a mission to humiliate Lucy, to deface her so that no man would ever look at her again and even take her life. It is also sad that, in his own sadistic and narcissistic way, he saw Lucy as his property and believed he could take her beauty, life, and dignity at will. Lucy gave the same account of events to the doctor, Dr. Rigi, who first attended to her at Kiambu Hospital. Additionally, Lucy herself was able to give the same account of events to Sergeant Linus Mugambi and Inspector Lemura, who visited her at the hospital to take her statement. But oh my, fate truly conspired against Samuel when, in a mysterious coincidence, Anne, one of the good Samaritans who helped Lucy after the attack, and David, who had found Samuel on the roadside and took him to hospital, met at a church function. Upon exchanging stories of the eventful night on Wednesday, 24th January 2018, they realized the two stories were related and went to report the matter to the Mugudha police station. The police officers at the station moved quickly and searched Samuel's car, which had been left at the police station as evidence since it was involved in the kidnapping. They found sulfuric acid in the car, a surprising oversight by Samuel and his accomplices, as it was a key piece of evidence. Anne also led the police to the scene where they had found Lucy, and at the scene, police retrieved a sock, a pair of jeans, and a blouse belonging to Lucy, surgical gloves, and pieces of sellotape. The police were quickly closing in on Samuel, and having gathered enough evidence, he was arrested on Thursday, 25th January 2018 at Kiambu Hospital as he attempted to visit Lucy. Thankfully, the police arrested him before he saw Lucy at the hospital because he might have attempted to silence her. Later in the day after Samuel's arrest, Lucy was transferred from Kiambu Hospital to Kenyatta National Hospital's burns unit for specialized treatment. At Kenyatta Hospital, Lucy was fighting for her life, and the doctors established that she had suffered acid burns on 75% of her body. Unfortunately, the following day, Friday, 26 January 2018, Lucy succumbed to the acid corrosion injuries, which turned the case against Samuel from an assault case to a murder investigation and caused her family immense pain. To build a foolproof case against Samuel and his accomplices, an autopsy was conducted on Lucy by Dr. Bernard Midia at Kenyatta National Hospital on Monday, 29 January 2018. The autopsy revealed that, in addition to Lucy being burnt with the acid, her attackers made her ingest the corrosive liquid. It further indicated that Lucy had been intimately assaulted and strangled as her neck had bruises. The pathologist determined that Lucy had died as a result of chemical burns from the assault. On the same day, Samuel Ndungu was arraigned in court at Kiambu Law Courts in connection to planning the kidnapping and murder of his ex-wife Lucy Njambi. Although the former MCA did not admit guilt, he alleged that he was not a perpetrator but a victim who was also kidnapped alongside his ex-wife Lucy. However, Lucy's statement when she was in the hospital was damning. The investigators had every reason to believe that Samuel was not a victim, but the orchestrator of the murder. Surprisingly, even in her death, Samuel and his family sought to remain possessive of Lucy. They dug a grave to bury her and obtained a court order barring Lucy's family from laying her to rest in her grandmother's home. One would really think he would finally let her go and rest in peace in her grandmother's home. But no, he was relentless in overasserting his control on Lucy, even beyond the grave. given that Lucy's family were not comfortable with her being buried at her husband's family home. Knowing that he was responsible for her demise, they did what they could to ensure that they buried Lucy at her grandmother's home. As a result, Lucy's family had to take her from Kenyatta University Funeral Home on 2nd February 2018 at 3 a.m. and her burial ceremony began at 10 a.m. before even the church leaders arrived. Nonetheless, Lucy's family gave her a beautiful send-off, and her loved ones eulogized her as loving, kind-hearted, and a hard-working person. Lucy, whose promising life had been tragically cut short at just 24 years, was finally laid to rest at her grandmother's home next to her mother, the late Mary Nyagiko. About 3 weeks later, on Monday 26 February 2018, Joyce Njambi, Samuel's girlfriend, and Wilson Mwangi were arrested in connection to Lucy's murder. However, the third suspect, Njugush, the fourth assailant, remained at large. Consequently, on 6 March 2018, the murder case against the three suspects commenced in court, and the prosecution had 38 witnesses lined up to testify. During the court proceedings, Lucy's family attested to the fact that Samuel and Lucy's relationship was very rocky, with Samuel being very insecure, obsessive, and abusive towards her. The evidence presented by the prosecutors in court that sealed the suspect's fate was not only Lucy's testimony of her assailants, but also the sulfuric acid recovered from Samuel's car, and the M-Pesa transfer Samuel made to the lab technician who gave him the lead on where to buy the sulfuric acid. Furthermore, the prosecutor presented CCTV footage from Homeland Inn restaurant on Thika Road, which showed Samuel, Joyce, Wilson, and Njugush having the meeting where they planned Lucy's murder. Additionally, Samuel's phone data further evidenced he was in constant communication with the accused and the deceased Lucy the day of her assault. The phone data also placed him at Lucy's apartment in Ndungu when Lucy was kidnapped. In essence, although Samuel elaborately planned Lucy's murder, he failed to think through covering his tracks and not leaving a trail of evidence. It is crucial to highlight that, even with all this evidence, Samuel maintained his innocence in court and even tried to play the victim as seen in this video. Despite his innocent assertion, on 12th April 2024, 6 years after gruesomely taking Lucy Njambi's life, Judge Joel Ngugi found Samuel Ndungu, Joyce Njambi, and Wilson Mwangi guilty without a shadow of a doubt and handed each of the assailants a 30-year sentence.
The accused persons, in concert, brutally murdered the deceased, a fairly youthful lady who had not yet turned 25 years old. Each of the three accused persons to 30 years in prison.
Honestly speaking, given how sadistically the suspects killed Lucy, 30 years does not seem to be commensurate with the crime they committed. They should have been handed a life sentence. What do you think? Was the sentencing commensurate with the crime? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. As for the third assailant, only identified as Njugush, he still remains at large 6 years later. In hindsight, the police should have released his image obtained from the CCTV to the public to help them find him. We truly hope that one day he will be apprehended and brought to book. It is sad that despite her aspirations and efforts to build a better life for herself and her son, Lucy fell victim to the toxic and abusive relationship with Samuel Ndungu, her husband, who was callous, manipulative, and controlling. Lucy's tragic case also underscores the horrifying reality of domestic violence in Kenya, with such cases remaining rampant. For example, most recently in Mombasa, 23-year-old Deborah Wangeshi was called by her ex's sister, claiming that she was sick. When Deborah went to see her at the house she shared with her brother, Isaac Kahinga, who was Deborah's ex-boyfriend, Isaac allegedly went to the kitchen in the pretext of making lunch, heated cooking oil, put it in a hot pot, then came to the sitting room and poured it on her. There is definitely an evident pattern of abusive exes luring their former partners to a meeting after a breakup and harming them. It is therefore advisable to refrain from meeting up with an ex after a bitter breakup, especially if they exhibit signs of being abusive and controlling. We send Lucy's friends and family our heartfelt condolences, and may her soul rest in eternal peace. Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to be notified when the next video is up. Until then, please take care, stay safe, and always trust your gut.